So he's done 9 videos on it, and all that's come out is like what, 2 or 3 trailers. The series isn't even out yet, and he's done 9 videos on the goddamn thing. But here we go. We're gonna check this out. This Organized Chaos video is brought to you by Gems Art Studio. This video is also brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Hello again. Well, Obi-Wan finished, and then we did a little palate cleanser video, one that actually had like decent reviews in it, decent thoughts on it, that didn't just scream about woman strong or woke shit. One that, actually was fucking thoughtful. But now we got another request, and we're dropping that immediately. So, the request, Alex Lemons, who is actually a very faithful watcher. I love your comments, dude. Thanks for watching. Could you cover Nerdrotic's recent Rings of Power video? So Amazon has their Lord of the Rings series coming out, I want to say September, right? Something like that. Later in the year. I haven't seen a whole lot about it. There's been some trailers. I think I've watched one of them. I do know the fans are getting I don't even know. The online community that I look at, like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker, are freaking out about it for some reason. And I don't understand why. I'll go ahead and tell you my history with Lord of the Rings. When I was in college, high school. No, it was high school shit. No. Yeah, high school shit. So when I was in high school, I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. And then when the first Lord of the Rings movies came out, I've read The Hobbit and Fellowship. I don't think I got all the way through the trilogy, though. I think I started Two Towers, but I didn't finish it. But I love the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm not so thrilled with the Hobbit trilogy. It's fine. Like, when they first announced it, I was like, God, that sounds like they're going to pad the shit out of it. But, Peter Jackson's a good director, so maybe he can sell it. And then, so I watched it, and it just felt pad the shit out. Padding stuff can be fine as long as you sell it, and that movie doesn't sell it. It feels padded. And I said movie. It's a trilogy. It feels like a movie's worth of story forced into a trilogy to be like Lord of the Rings, and it's just not The Hobbit. It's not. The Hobbit is like a shorter, quicker, like, kid story. It's almost like Lord of the Rings Jr. And this, in the Hobbit trilogy, was so dedicated to just making it a huge story like Lord of the Rings, and that's just not what The Hobbit is in its nature. But they made it. And there are worse movies. The Hobbit trilogy is not the worst thing ever. And it's cool to have more fantasy movies. That being said, since it came out and I watched it, I have not watched it since then. I've watched Lord of the Rings a couple times since then, but I haven't watched The Hobbit. Those Lord of the Rings movies are great. I don't know if I've really talked about them yet, but yeah, I love those Lord of the Rings movies. Peter Jackson did an amazing job. I love the visuals. I love how he made the Hobbits primarily using forced perspective. They talked about using computer animation with them, and they do with some shots. Mainly the computer animation is just pasting someone else's face over somebody else's body. But a lot of it is forced perspective, and it looks amazing. God, those movies are just a technical feat. And what makes them work so well is that they're a technical feat without looking like a technical feat. And it's fantastic. But anyways, a lot of people have been freaking out about this new Amazon series for reasons I don't fully understand. I mean, some of the images don't thrill me. Probably the one I saw that I thought was weird was they had a black woman as a dwarf who essentially just looked like a black woman who was shorter. Which, to my understanding, isn't what a dwarf... Aren't dwarf women supposed to be bearded? It's been a while, but I thought, like, dwarf women and dwarf men were, like, almost indistinguishable. It's a nitpick, though. Because, how they want to present this series and how they want to present the original series, the original books are different, but it's... I'm not thrilled with that choice. But anyways, the other complaints I've been seeing is, like, people are upset that they're portraying Galadriel as a warrior, which... I'm not gonna lie, that actually seems logical to me. She's a queen in The Lord of the Rings, and this is a prequel series, I am pretty sure. So wouldn't being a warrior make sense? But anyways, I think I've blathered for a bit long enough. We're gonna watch Nerdrotic's latest Lord of the Rings video. I just kind of want to give you a history, because I don't think I've talked about Lord of the Rings much on this channel. But let's check out his video and his super cool thumbnails. His thumbnails are always the coolest. Oh man. Amazon's PR disaster. Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power looks awful. How many? He's done that recently, but how many has he done on this? Just this fucking topic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see, is that it? That's gotta be it. There hasn't been trailers for that long. So he's done 9 videos on it. And all that's come out is like, what? 2 or 3 trailers? The series isn't even out yet, and he's done 9 videos on the goddamn thing. But here we go. We're gonna check this out.
Will you look into the mirror?
What will I see?
Fan attacks are
back on the menu.
Random pictures. Yeah, that'll definitely make you. Well, I guess Jeff Bezos laughing. That could be terrifying. I could see him fainting just from that one. The other pictures, I'm like, I don't care.
Boys.
Nerdrotic.com.
That's strange. It feels like I was just talking about this subject. Oh yeah, with Disney Star Wars.
That's racist!
Except this time we have some pop culture inception going on with author George R. R. Martin going after toxic fandom in The Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Disney Star Wars, and of course with his own property, Game of Thrones, in particular, Season 8, while also talking about the competing show against The Rings of Power, House of the Dragon. And yes, there's an Empire article to go along with those covers, which we are going to talk about, as well as some possible spoilers from episode 2 of The Rings of Power and the answer to one of our biggest questions. I'll give you a hint. You're not going to like it. From the Access Media rag known as The Independent, George R. R. Martin, I don't understand how people can come to hate so much something that they once loved. Where do I even begin? Oh, I remember. Multinational billion-dollar corporation purchases beloved intellectual property. Beloved intellectual property is valuable because it comes with a built-in revenue stream known as a fan base.
I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
Disconnected elites who run multinational billion-dollar corporation hire subpar activist talent who hitch their political wagons onto something more popular.
Subpar activist talent.
Once again, you put your keen and penetrating mind to the task, and as usual, come to the wrong conclusion.
No, they hire the people who they think will keep the people coming back. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for people to keep on watching. Subpar activist talent. Do you think, like activists, do you think these billionaires are hiring people because they want, well, that's his argument. They're pushing woke agenda, which is bullshit. They don't care about woke agenda. They just care about getting people in seats. That's what they care about. He's talking about, this evil corporation that bought Lord of the Rings franchise. Did you do videos talking about how awful it was when Amazon bought this franchise? Probably not, but all of a sudden it's a big deal because it fits your woke narrative. Here's the problem. channels like this are courting the toxic fandom. This channel and the other channels like this are courting the toxic fandom and encouraging it. Channels like this are the fucking problem with media today.
Popular because they can't create it on their own. Suddenly, the thing you know better than this activist talent and the disassociated elitists who run
activist talent. Ugh. People aren't hired to work on projects by major studios because they're fucking activists. How many Greta Thunberg projects is Amazon currently in production of making? They don't hire people for activism. They hire people for experience and knowledge. Their goal is to keep people watching the show and talking about it. And honestly, with you freaking out over the wokeness, yeah, it doesn't hurt them either.
Run the multi-billion-dollar corporation start using language like, the thing you love needs to appeal to a larger global audience.
Yes, because they want it to reach out to as many people as possible.
Thing you love needs to reflect the world of today. The thing.
Okay, so art always reflects the world of today. That's kind of what art does. Now, it might you might be in like a far off universe. You might be in Middle Earth or in a galaxy far, far away. But it still reflects today's society in many ways. Saying it doesn't is just fucking dumb. Today's society will always be reflected in art in some degree. Maybe not directly, but it's gonna be there.
Thing you love won't be the thing you love that you remember. The thing you love needs to be more accessible and relatable. You respond by saying the thing we love has always appealed to a giant global audience, has always been relatable and accessible. It's always been the thing we remember because we know it better than you do. We're the ones who made the thing we love worth the hundreds of millions of dollars that you paid to get it. Then the detached elites who run the multi-billion-dollar corporation, along with the subpar hack activist creatives, along with the adult pretenders, call you a bigot. Then the thing you...
Because it's always been like that. Yeah, recently it does seem like they're promoting it more, but it's always been like that. They always want to reach out to the biggest audience that they can get. Period. And that's the thing. So comic books used to have very niche audience, very selective audience. Teenage boys, primarily. But they've been branching out more because more people have been interested. More women have been interested in comic books. They've been branching out more to reach out to that demographic. This is just common business sense. And it's the same thing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel Cinematic Universe primarily was targeting males between age 20 and 40. But everyone started getting into it. So they're like, oh, we need to get everyone more into this by like, having more women characters, having more black characters. Which took the MCU far too long to get to, but they're getting to it now, thankfully. This is logic and business, and if you don't like it, grow the fuck up. So the problem with these toxic fanboys is that it seems like their biggest thing they like to yell about is that thing used to be for me, but it's not for me anymore. And it always comes down to, like, people of color or women being more involved. And just suck it up, Buttercup.
Love doesn't love you.
Yes!
So if the new series comes out and you don't like it, don't watch it. I personally am not super excited for this series. At all. At all. I'll check it out, because, I do like Lord of the Rings stuff, but a prequel series, But, maybe it'll be cool.
What's next?
But you can't do this to me. You know how much I sacrifice?
Can't imagine why somebody would get pissed off about that. Now let's get back to George.
Well, every adaptation is going to be different. Every adaptation is going to reflect the time in which it was made. You think the Peter Jackson movies are a direct translation of the books 100% and they're 100% faithful? Because I assure you, they're not.
briefly. Now, this is largely a fluff piece about House of the Dragon, the other fantasy series that.
Yeah, a fluff piece. Yeah, that's what a lot of these magazine articles will be. They got behind the scenes and they got access, and therefore they're going to write a fluff piece, which is very much a problem. Not so much for, like, entertainment stuff, but, like, when it comes to politicians, they get access and they write fluff pieces on politicians. That's a fucking problem.
That will be airing around the same time as the Rings of Power. And I'll say right now, it's probably going to be better. Just not sure how many people are going to care because Game of Thrones seasons 6, 7, and 8 were complete disasters and he never finished the Winds of Winter. How's the book going, George? So after the first paragraph of this fluff piece about House of the Dragon, what did they talk about? You guessed it, toxic fandom. The runaway success of Game of Thrones made Martin rich beyond even his wildest fevered dreams of a lifelong science fiction writer, but it's his first-hand experience with the viciousness of a particular type of hyper-online fan that's left him uncharacteristically stumped. Really, George, I don't understand how people can come to hate so much something that they once loved, he says, and I gave you an explanation why that happens. If you
Yeah, and your explanation was dog shit. So cool, good job.
Don't like a show, don't watch it. How has everything become so toxic? And unfortunately,
Wow, I love how he reads it in the lame voice there. So toxic. Yeah, things have gone toxic. Like every community has gone toxic. And channels like this are encouraging it, and it's really frustrating. You offer shitty critiques, and frequently objectively wrong critiques, and then present it as a serious review, and the toxic fans eat it up. You provide a community for these toxic fans to come together and just feed off their toxicity and become worse. This is bad, man.
Fortunately, of late, this has been the general attitude of the creative and their lapdogs in the access media. I mean, George doesn't have any kids.
Wow, lapdogs in the access media. Dude, are you saying you're not toxic? When you complain about women starring in a movie or people of color starring in a movie and you're going to say you're not fucking toxic, you're toxic as fuck. It's not, the women don't even have to star. Women just have to save some white guy or a main character and all of a sudden, oh, this sucks. Go fuck yourself, man.
But I did meet him once on the set of The Orville back in early 2021, and he was followed around by no less than 9 people that he referred to as minions.
You weird, buddy. You're weird.
By the way, on that tour, I was the only person whose hand he didn't shake.
What a bitch.
Well, just as you are free
Ooh, are you butthurt over that? You sound a bit butthurt.
to say whatever the hell you want in an interview or on your Not a blog while you're not writing Winds of Winter. We're free to say whatever the hell we want to, and welcome to the 21st century. We are. The author is wise enough not to take any of the online abuse he suffers too personally. Yeah, that's probably a smart move. After all, the same toxicity seems to infect the discourse around many of the world's most popular stories. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. It's not a popular story yet, and you're just about to say that right now.
Lord of the Rings is a very popular story, and Rings of Power is a spin-off? I don't know. Yeah. And the fact that you've talked about it 9 fucking times already tells me, yeah, maybe it's already kind of popular.
Isn't even out yet, so how could it be popular? Oh, it's popular because it's built in. Because an author named J.R.R. Tolkien, by the way, George R. Martin is J.R.R. Tolkien's bitch, meticulously created the secondary
Okay.
world while he raised a family, while he worked another job, unlike George R. Martin. Yes, the fans are very protective of him. But if you follow what's going on online, the controversy about it is like World War II. They're dropping atomic bombs on each other, he says incredulously, of the fans who howl about any perceived deviation from the source material. You hear controversies about some of the Marvel shows and the Marvel movies, certainly about the DC characters. It used to be if you were a fan of Star Trek, you like Star Trek. Yeah, because Star Trek used to be good and it no longer is Star Trek.
It no longer is Star Trek? It's still Star Trek. You may not like it, but it's still Star Trek.
Now it seems like half the people who call themselves Star Trek fans hate Star Trek. Yeah, because it sucks. And the Star Wars
Yeah, I'm betting you haven't even watched it. And odds are, if you watched it, you'd go in fucking hating it and nitpicking all the dumb shit. Because everything has dumb shit in it that you can nitpick. Everything does. The fact is, listen, if you don't want to like it and you don't want to watch it, cool. Don't watch it. But don't act like you're giving it a serious consideration when you go in hating it and then nitpick it to death. That's not a review. That's just you being a shithead.
Wars fans hate Disney Star Wars, and the Tolkien fans hate the Rings of Power. What the hell? Now maybe it's because it's changing, but as a writer, you go crazy if you didn't change it somehow. You want to tell new stories, not to tell the same stories over and over again.
Real quick, I agree with everything George R. R. Martin said there.
Or in George's case, not finish a story. To be fair, George did acknowledge that there's two sides to this, so let's flip this question around. Why do so many TikTokers and influencers and supposed Tolkien scholars and professors, members of the Tolkien Society, hate the beloved professor so much that they need to see his original life's work change?
I'm very also cautious about saying if a work will remain true to the spirit of an author or not, because at the end of the day, Tolkien died in the 70s. So it's up to us to basically step our game up and see how his works can respond through the world that they created to the challenges of today.
When you get a writer who is hired to do an adaptation but is not familiar with the material, or doesn't, in some cases, they hire people who don't even like the original material. And you have language in Hollywood, I'm going to make it my own. I have my own vision for this and that sort of thing. If I go to see The Great Gatsby, I don't want someone's take on The Great Gatsby. I don't want them to make it their own. I want Scott Fitzgerald brought to life in front of my face. I want Daisy and Tom and Gatsby and the Roaring Twenties, and you don't always get that.
Make up your mind, and I'll make up mine.
And Amazon's rollout of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, again, has been nothing short of a PR disaster. Probably the worst we've ever seen, with things like warrior manspreading Galadriel.
Yeah, why do you guys care about Galadriel being a warrior? It makes sense. She's a queen, and she's a badass in the movies, so why wouldn't she be a warrior? It's not... It makes sense to me. Why do you care? And it's not like we've even seen the storyline, so it might make 100% perfect sense within the storyline, so...
My balls! I don't want my balls sticking to my legs!
Taking a character that was the pinnacle of feminine energy and the greatest of the...
The pinnacle of feminine energy? She was kind of fucking scary and intense, man. She could probably kick your ass. The pinnacle of feminine energy. Fucking, sure, whatever.
Female elves and turning her into a dude. I think the biological female...
No, they're turning her into a woman that happens to be a warrior. I know you're just doing it for comic effect, but a warrior is not a man. The two are not automatically linked.
Female Melanie Mack says it best. I'll never understand why Hollywood thinks making women act like men is supposed to be an empowering thing for us. So here we have warrior Galadriel sitting like a dude with the biggest sword hilt I've ever seen and a knife right in her crotch area. I wonder what they're trying to tell.
They're letting you know that this is going to be the character in the story. I mean, cool. I mean, Galadriel was always kind of a badass. This looks kind of cool to me.
Tell us.
And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
Oh, are you intimidated by her knife dick? You're intimidated by her knife dick. I see you.
And I can hear the shills justifying this now. Tolkien wasn't specific about Galadriel not having balls. She might actually sit like this.
I don't think they're going to try to make Galadriel trans. Can a woman not sit with her legs spread? Typically, the leg spread doesn't have as much to do with balls as much as it has to do with confidence. Usually when you sit with your legs spread, it just means you're kind of comfortable where you're at. When you're a bit more confined and close together, it means you're less comfortable. when she's sitting like that, she's saying she's not scared.
From Empire, now The Lord of the Rings is about to change the game all over again with the Rings of Power, setting fantasy back 20 years, a streaming series that takes the world you love and brings it back to the screen, just not quite as you remember. There we go. And as I've said in the past, bad reboot disciples like J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay are very good at one thing, the art of bullshit. Let me amend that, to the studios, but not to you and I. From Lord of the Rings of Power doesn't try to compete with Peter Jackson's trilogy or Game of Thrones. Let's see if I can get through this. You can psych yourself out in Keeping Up with the Joneses, but one of the mantras on this was to go back to the source material. McKay explains. What would Tolkien do? None of this! What source?
How do you know that? And yeah, actually, one of the issues with the original books is that there's not a whole lot of women characters. The movies actually buffed up the women character roles quite a bit. So yeah, I feel like the part of their goal will be like do that, but also have women characters involved, like Galadriel. I'm not gonna lie, the more they show Warrior Galadriel, she looks awesome. I dig it.
Material, you mean from The Return of the King? This? That's 5 supposed planned seasoned based on 157 pages, in this printing anyway, of appendices. Lenny Henry, who plays Harfoot Sadoc Burrows in Lord of the Rings.
Well, no, they're not saying they're drawing directly from the book. They're saying, we're going to do what we can with the source material, and then with the extra stuff, try to ask ourselves what Tolkien would do. Which is kind of what you'd want to do. Like all you like, hey, follow the story types should like that.
The Rings of Power. We're the traditional Tolkien little guy, are ya? So when showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay first set out to tell the story in the Hobbit-free second age of Middle-earth for Prime Video's streaming series, The Lord of the Rings of Power, or DOA, you can just call it that, Peter Jackson's films and the original novels are set thousands of years later in the Third Age. They were faced with a conundrum. How do you conjure the world without featuring its most notable inhabitants? By focusing on the characters that were actually in the appendices, and as short as they are, there is no shortage of characters. Nope, these hacks are going to make up more characters. The answer was the Harfoots, beings who feature in the original Tolkien lore as the Hobbits' predecessors. No, they're just hobbits. There are 3 kinds of hobbits: Stoors, Fallowhides, and Harfoots. These lot have those famous...
Would they not be the predecessors, though? Jesus Christ.
Furry feet and short stature, but they haven't settled in the Shire yet. Oh, and one of them, by the name of Sadoc Burrows, a made-up hobbit name for a Harfoot that's a hobbit, not a predecessor to one.
Sure.
Played by none other than Lenny Henry, and wait till you hear what he has to say.
Woohoo!
We're a nomadic tribe moving with the weather and the fertility of the crops. We have big caravans on wooden wheels, and we're very good at hiding things because humans are much bigger than us and bring trouble, Henry tells Empire of the Harfoot way of life. And while they're not exactly hobbits, no, they're actually hobbits, they'll still be playing hobbit-like roles in the wider tale. We're the traditional Tolkien little guy, explains Henry. Traditionally, the little people in this world provide comedy, but also get to be incredibly brave. You're going to see us run the full gamut of emotions and actions in this adventure.
Really? Wow.
Well, that sounds compelling. An adult pretender named Lenny Henry is going to play a character that's going to show emotion and memorize lines and do things for...
Yes, that's his job. What do you want him to do in an interview? Hey, I understand you're in this Lord of the Rings series. Can you tell us about it? Yeah, I'm just gonna half-ass the shit out of it. I really don't care. I was hoping to get some free food, maybe get drunk on set. What do you expect him to say? Of course he's gonna talk it up. They act like it's insane that these people talk up this stuff in interviews, and it's like, of course they are. That's their fucking job.
For Henry, taking on the role of Sadoc Burrows not only allowed him to play in the fantasy genre that he loves, it also offered an opportunity to help shift the needle on a world that previously hasn't tended to feature people of color in prominent roles. What? If you can.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings doesn't have that many people of color.
See it, you can't be it, he says. Finally, in this show, kids are going to see people of color taking up.
Dude, it's the fucking British spelling. It's color. Yeah, they add an extra U, and it's kind of stupid, but it's the way they spell it, and probably their spelling of it's been around longer than ours, so Jesus.
Space in the center of a fantasy series. We're very visible in this world, and that's very exciting. The Harfoot's journey is about to begin. You think kids are going to...
Jesus, so is his biggest complaint is that there's women as warriors and black people in this series? Because that seems like the biggest change they're talking about doing is that they're going to incorporate more people of color and fucking, we're going to get more Galadriel as a warrior. And that's what he's stuck on. That is what he's stuck on. These people are all sexist and racist. That's the thing. I'm pretty sure, watching a lot of these, I'm pretty sure these guys are just fucking grifters, and they're just courting the racist and sexist fan base.
Going to be watching this show, Lenny. Well, I hope you take time to tell all the kiddies out there about the Hobbit and Elven racial cleansing that happens before the Third Age. But we know we're really not talking about kids. We're talking about superfan influencers like the ones Amazon picked out who never read Lord of the Rings or maybe watched half the movies while they were on their phone. But they made it very clear this isn't going to be anything like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings or J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And based on what I know from the...
Well, they said they're going to take it from the appendices, and, yeah, they're just going to do what they can with that. I'll be interested to see. I'm always up for new fantasy stuff, although I'll be blunt. I never finished Wheel of Time Season 1. I wasn't thrilled with what they did with that. That's an Amazon thing, too. God, I hope this follows a better path than that, but I don't know. Maybe I need to finish Season 1. Maybe I'll like Season 1 more of when I finish it, of Wheel of Time. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Second episode and what character doesn't show up in the first two and isn't even mentioned, it's pretty clear. Before we get to that, let's take a look at some of the new images. Of course, we have man-spreading warrior Galadriel.
Yeah, you're intimidated by that knife dick. You're like, oh, fuck, knife dick.
Then we have the Harfoots. There's Lenny Henry's Sadok Burrow, and I saw this tweet today, and chef's kiss. And then there's...
Kind of the same energy. I don't know. I don't know what the character might be. It's probably completely different.
Dwarves. Oh, shit. I'm not going to say anything. Yes, it looks like Nick Rekieta and Oprah Winfrey. Then we have a snow troll, which...
No, it didn't, but sure.
Looks pretty good. And then we have a made-up character on a made-up tower in made-up Tolkien.
All characters are made up in fiction. That's what fiction is.
Okay, they're talking about fictional characters. Fictional characters. Am I getting through to you at all?
We finally get a look at Celebrimbor, Noldorian prince, last in the line of the House of Fëanor. He ruled Eregion and forged the 3 elven rings of power, Phyla, Narya, and Nenya. And in this preview from Empire, he looks like a lesbian school mom.
Okay, it's a fucking image. Oh my god.
Meet the Lord of the Rings of Power's pivotal elf, Celebrimbor. He's an elven smith who was manipulated into helping create the Rings of Power. We're excited to be bringing him to Middle-earth. He's very mysterious. The character comes directly from Tolkien's extensive legendarium, the one Amazon largely doesn't have the rights to, and has been brought to the screen before, if not so faithfully in The Shadow of Mordor and in the Shadow of War video games. And this is supposed to be faithful? Why don't the elves have long hair? Why don't they look ethereal? Why do they look so human? Well, according to showrunner Patrick McKay, we have Hobbit adjacent, and now we have elf adjacent. But the show clearly isn't even going to be Tolkien adjacent. No, we're not done with Empire yet. Morfydd Clark on The Lord of the Rings of Power's warrior Galadriel. She still has a lot to learn. That sense of outdoors.
Here's the thing, if they were just complaining about elves not having long hair, or like the stuff that like really breaks away from Tolkien, the dwarves not having beards, I would be a bit more on board. I would still say let's see what they do with it, but yeah, that type of stuff isn't great. But he spent most of this video complaining about Galadriel being a woman warrior, which looks fucking cool to me. She looks like a badass. And then having a Black Hobbit, which I quite frankly don't care.
Worthiness? What the hell are we doing to our language? Hints at a more active incarnation of Galadriel, warrior Galadriel.
I think it's funny he's going to complain about fucking language with the misuse of the word woke, and I'm sure SJW that he abuses all the time.
One who, according to the actor, still has a lot to learn even after thousands of years. Through the course of the show, I had to find that balance between someone who has got an element of the eternal but hasn't yet seen it all in thousands of years. Don't expect the same character that you meet later on. Well, if you've read Tolkien, I wouldn't expect anything to be the same, including warrior Galadriel. But we do have confirmation of...
Wow, he must be intimidated by a strong woman. That must scare the shit out of him. He is so fucking... He's cucked. I don't know how else to describe it. Strong women scare the shit out of him, it seems like. He can't handle a woman with a knife penis, that's for sure. Of course, the more I say knife penis, I'm like, yeah, knife penis would be a little terrifying.
One thing. Celeborn, Galadriel's husband, the man who traveled with Galadriel to Lindon at the beginning of the Second Age, according to Tolkien, isn't mentioned at all in the first 2 episodes.
For every mystery, there is someone somewhere who knows the truth.
Yeah, because there's limited information, they're probably not going to follow it exactly. Neither did the Peter Jackson movies. They were great movies, but they didn't follow it exactly.
Perhaps that someone was watching.
Have you seen this elf? And might not pop up for most of the series, which leads me to believe one of 2 things. Celeborn's either going to be greatly diminished or dead. And the explanation from the showrunners will probably be we wouldn't want to rob warrior Galadriel of her agency. We also have the original character, Guess Who's Coming to Second Breakfast, Bronwyn, killing an orc either by herself or with her son Theo. The guy who falls from the sky is indeed a wizard, but he can't speak. It's Nori who finds him, and he needs to be taken somewhere. Elrond is not only going to travel to Eregion early to meet Celebrimbor, he's going to go to Moria and meet Prince Durin IV and Disa. All this in that contrived modern writing that has become a staple of modern Hollywood. In other words, modernity wrapped in a loose Tolkien skin. So now we know why Amazon has been reluctant to show us very much until now. Because like Disney Star Wars with Kenobi, they know they have a giant turd on their hands and there's nothing they can do about it. And I don't think there's anything that illustrates more how backwards we've gone in modern storytelling and modern cinema with these contrasts. Peter Jackson's elves versus the Rings of Power elves. So to get this straight, Amazon paid hundreds of millions of dollars to the Tolkien estate to get that built-in audience that they decided to immediately alienate, to bypass us for the normies who love the Peter Jackson trilogy that Amazon is now trying to distance itself from. And when this intersectional feminist Lord of the Rings inevitably...
I don't know his evidence that they're trying to distance themselves from the Peter Jackson movies. But let's face it, the Peter Jackson movies were not 100% like the books. Just like this series isn't going to be 100% like the books. They actually can't be because we don't have that much in the history there.
Fails, of course it'll be the fans' fault. Again, I would love nothing more than to cover a good Lord of the...
Why would it be the fans' fault? You guys keep on creating this goddamn victim narrative. We'll get to it. We're almost done with this, and I have some thoughts.
Ring series on this channel. It would be great, but that's not going to happen. So instead, I'm going to break out my popcorn and kick back and watch possibly the biggest flop in history. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe.
Okay. That was awful. But one thing I actually do want to stress is I actually don't think a lot of the images shown there, and I've seen some of it before, I don't think it looks great. The set design looks kind of artificial. The costumes look kind of blatantly like costumes. Yeah, they're going to be costumes, but they really look like costumes. A lot of the look of this series doesn't look great to me. It's a little discouraging. The biggest exception, I would say, would be Galadriel as the warrior. I think she looks fucking great. She looks badass. But yeah, he didn't focus on that. Like, yeah, why don't the elves have long hair? Why don't the dwarves have beards? That would be kind of cool. that's kind of weird that they aren't doing that. It's kind of weird that they're kind of feminizing the female dwarves. I don't really like they're doing that. The more I see of it, that I don't like it. Like, the only thing I really like is the warrior Galadriel. I think she looks awesome. We'll see how the series turns out. But yeah, his review just focused on warrior Galadriel is scary, which is dumb. Warrior Galadriel looks great. And then the other thing he brought up was the Black Hobbit. He spent a lot of time on the Black Hobbit, and I don't care. He brought up how they're saying the Harfoots, I believe, were the early form of the Hobbit, and according to him, there's 3 different groups of hobbits, and the Harfoots were just one of them. Again, it's been a while since I read it. He might be right. I don't care. I haven't looked it up. I know they're wrong on half the stuff. I know that video, like, whether or not they get that detail right doesn't really matter. They are getting a lot of details wrong in this series, clearly. With my limited knowledge, I can tell you that. And that is a problem with me. But his complaints are mostly just the racist and sexist variety. He wants to pretend like toxic fandom doesn't exist. He is a toxic fan, and he is courting toxic fans, and he is encouraging toxic fans. The toxic fans are around partially because of him. He is monetizing toxic fans. And as you can tell, part of the point of this channel is to provide a counter-narrative to these toxic fans' bullshit. Because it all breaks down to sexist and racist. It all does. You discuss shit with these guys, they either run around in circles, or they just come out as sexist or racist, or just say the stupidest fucking shit. It happens every fucking time. So, now we gotta deal with it, and we gotta call it out when we see it.
No man can kill me. Die now.
I am no man.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.